Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to open tonight's meeting, November meeting of the Cranston City Plan Commission. Before we begin with approval of minutes, because I know we have people here who are interested in a couple of the issues that actually will not be heard tonight. We have received word that at the request of the applicant, the 40 Meredith Drive proposal is being withdrawn without prejudice. So we will not be discussing that issue. Also, the applicant for the Cobble Hill development on Hemlock Avenue has requested that the item be continued to the December 3rd meeting, which would be the next meeting of the Planning Commission. We do need to commission does need to take a vote.
On that one, yeah, take a vote on that one.
On the second one, yes. So I'll accept a motion to continue the Hemlock Avenue item to the meeting of December 3rd. Motion made by Commissioner Barbieri, seconded by Commissioner Exter. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, on to approval of minutes. We have before us the regular City Plan Commission meeting from October 1st. Are there any changes or questions to that item? Commissioner Lampier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did distribute to my fellow commissioners and planning staff and legal counsel an amendment that I had to those minutes on page 2 under older business, Natick Solar, and I think it's probably best to just read my amendment into the record. It starts with Stephen Marcella, Assistant City Solicitor, explained that the Superior Court reversed the 5-3 decision of the City Plan Commission denying master plan approval of the application of Natick Solar. Mr. Marcella read the following from the Superior Court decision. And then there was 1, 2, and 3, which I did not amend. Thereafter, I added, Solicitor Marcella stated that the commission was now required to effectuate the court order and that the commission must approve the master plan application of Natick Solar pursuant to that court order. Upon a motion made by Mr. Zedelis and seconded by Ms. Lanfear, noting that her second was pursuant to court order and as required by the court, the City Plan Commission voted unanimously 7-0 to grant the appellant's master plan application per order of the Rhode Island Superior Court. Discussion ensued regarding the decision and order, and Ms. Lanfear requested that this matter be placed on the regular November City Plan Commission calendar for an executive session. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other changes, questions? Yeah.
I would like to move that what I read into the record be an amendment to the minutes.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Lanfear. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Mancini. All in favor, please say aye. Ayes have it. And now, unless there are any other changes, we can get a motion on approval of the minutes as amended. Commissioner Matus
Make a motion to approve as amended.
moves approval as amended. Commissioner Exter seconds. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. and the minutes are approved. We have a second set of minutes. There was a special meeting held on the 16th of October. And are there any questions or comments on those minutes? If not, I will accept a motion to accept those minutes as presented. A motion made by Commissioner Mancini, seconded by Commissioner Lanfear. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and those minutes are approved. Okay, the next item is discussion on the Natick Solar LLC project. And for that, I would just like to turn to Commissioner Lanfear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As those of you who were here for our last regular meeting may recall, after we took our vote, there was a discussion about an executive session to be briefed by legal counsel with regard to the decision, also to, I believe, educate commissioners. The makeup of the commission has changed since the matter was initially before us, and the travel of the case has been anything but routine. So part of my request was so that the commission could be appropriately educated by legal counsel, and we would have the opportunity to ask questions that could have to do with legal strategy if there is in fact an appeal, or to be at least briefed on that, or to request guidance from our legal counsel. So that was the purpose of requesting the executive session. I had anticipated that that would be on tonight's agenda, but my understanding is that we need to first vote on that and make sure that we have the necessary individuals who can brief us appropriately.
Solicitor Marsella.
Yes, so essentially all you're voting on today is if you want to put a docket item for the next available meeting for an executive session regarding the litigation of Natick Solar LLC. That's the only thing you're voting on.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Is there any discussion? Yeah, Commissioner Frias.
Obviously, this has been a long case, and it's been appealed to the Rhode Island Supreme Court. And so I think it would behoove us to go into executive session and get an update from the proper attorneys as to the status of the appeal, the grounds in which the decision was rendered by the Superior Court. And the best way to do that, because this is a matter in pending litigation, and would be to go in executive session.
Any other discussion? Okay, if not, I'll accept a motion to place on the December 3rd agenda an executive session to discuss litigation related to this matter.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Commissioner Lanfear, seconded by Commissioner Frias. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion passes unanimously. So that will be on our agenda in December. Okay, the next item is zoning board of review recommendations. Thomas J. Donnelly and Melissa Donnelly have applied to the board to allow an accessory garage structure to be built in the required front yard setback at 24 Normandy Drive. Yes. Yes,
Yes, you would.
yes. Right, it's withdrawn without prejudice, but if in any way, shape, or form, it's resubmitted in whatever form, then all of the butters who have been contacted for this will also be contacted. There'll be like a de novo, a whole new proposal.
It would be a whole new application.
Yep.
Go ahead. Unfortunately, the matter's been withdrawn, so there's no application before the commission.
Yeah, but.
No, I think it's the same neighborhood.
Okay. Let's get back to the Normandy Drive case.
Okay, we have an application for dimensional variance request at 24 Normandy Drive. The owner and applicant is Thomas J. Donnelly and Melissa A. Donnelly. The assessor's plat is 15 lot 1023, zone A8, single residential. And the future land use map designates it single family residential with the density of 7.26 to 3.64 units per acre. And the summary is to allow an already existing 20 by 20-foot car garage to be built on the parcel 151023. It exceeds dimensional standard within the zoning code. The zoning is A8, future land use, single-family residential. Here is this lot right on the corner here. In these pictures, this is the street view of the property. The garage is already built, so you can see the garage in these photos. Here is the site views. And this is the site plan, not entirely legible, so I included the next slide to kind of help designate where the garage and the house sit on the property. I also just put the property line in orange. So the applicant has requested relief in their application by variances and the location of a residential accessory building. I noted that the required setback for that garage would be 25 feet. The proposed is 20 feet, so the relief requested is only 5 feet. Staff has reviewed this application in consideration of the compatibility with the character of surrounding area, and the request does not appear to impose undue nuances and is not out of character with the surrounding area. The property and the surrounding area are both residential in nature. And I wanted to add that the plans were reviewed and the building permit was granted on July 23rd, 2023 for the garage construction. This application is submitted due to the location of the garage being slightly closer to the street to avoid the disturbance of an old tree on site. The future land use map designates again 7.26 to 3.64 single family density. And considering this proposal doesn't add any density to the units, to the parcel, it is generally consistent. And to align with the comprehensive plan, I called out housing goal H-2, which is permit a variety of residential developments to achieve multiple community objectives, as well as land use goal 6, which is protect and stabilize the existing residential neighborhoods. And my recommendation is in accordance with Rhode Island General Law 452441B and Section 1792 10A of the zoning ordinance. Staff finds this application generally consistent with the goals and purposes of the comprehensive plan and is compatible with the general character of the surrounding neighborhood. Staff therefore recommends that the City Plan Commission adopt the findings of fact documented above and forward a positive recommendation on the application to the zoning board. Thank you.
Any members of the commission? And I can see the applicant's not here, and there's nobody. Yes, Commissioner Lanfear.
I just want to say thank you for explaining to us. When I looked at it and saw that it was already there, I was concerned that they hadn't followed the proper procedures. So the reason why they're seeking it is because they got a permit, but when they went to build it, they moved it a little bit without asking permission.
Correct. It's almost like, even with the modifications, they still needed relief because they moved it just enough to need relief. So it's not we did it without plans and now you caught us. It was a little bit different situation there.
Thank you. And that makes a difference to me. So I appreciate you bringing that information to light. Thank you.
Mr. Lima, is there anybody online who wishes to be heard on this item?
I'm seeing no, just a reminder, please use the raise hand function if you would like to speak. There's no public comment.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, discussions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve staff recommendation. Motion made by Commissioner Barberi and seconded by Commissioner Mancini. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, at this time, we'll enter into a workshop on subdivision and land development regulations that have been updated. The staff has done a terrific job combing through some of the regulations that probably have not been looked at for quite a while and updated vis-a-vis state law. So you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm Beth Ashman. Going to speak from here, so I'm not standing behind the screen. There were a number of changes in Rhode Island general law that took effect in 2024 that obligate the city of Cranston to update their regulations. The purpose of technical review, which is purely advisory and cannot impose conditions, the development plan review, and the appeals going directly to Superior Court. Also, as you look through this over 100-page document, you'll see there are a lot of changes that we're proposing, which are due to 2023 state law changes, which City of Cranston hadn't integrated into their development regs. So the uniform development rights, vesting, optional pre-application conferences, waiver procedures, those are all also required. And I know this is super, super small, but to try to help you navigate this very long list of changes, we put in a column, we itemized all the different changes we have made, and we put in a column where we indicated whether they were required, as in required by the general law, in our opinion, versus discretionary, things the staff are advancing for your consideration that don't originate from changes in the Rhode Island general law. You'll also see in the document that there are a lot of definitions that changed. We've changed definitions to align them with the state definition, so we wouldn't be, just for simplicity, not be different, just to be different. We removed definitions where the term was never used in the subdivision regulations, and we added quite a few definitions to terms that were in the subdivision regulations. There's quite a few just small errata in there, whether it's an update to a reference or grammar. And finally, there are a number of things in this draft that reflect changes in thinking over the years that are recommended by staff, but they're purely discretionary. And I want to just highlight those because the charge to us is to make sure that before we dive into the phase 2 of the comp plan, that we pause and help you update the subdivision regs and the zoning to catch up with changes in state law. So anything that needs a lot more discussion, we can always put into that bucket of things to consider later. But you will see in there are a number of changes. The maximum length of a dead-end street in our regulations is 400 feet. We've proposed to change that to 1,600 feet. So just call that out. The regulation said that you could have a minimum of 24 feet of pavement if you were building a dead-end road with no more than 10 houses. We changed that to a maximum because pavement's not as popular as it used to be. We've also, in the landscaping requirements, it said that we recommend New England native species, and then it goes on to list a number of non-native species. So we crossed out native species because to be consistent with what's in there, and we eliminate one tree, which is an invasive, the Bradford pear. So this is something all the staff in the planning department worked on. And I just want to, go over our guiding principles was just first, align everything with state law. That was our number one priority. The second thing was to make things clear, especially where we, in interacting with developers, know that things are unclear. We made a couple of changes to improve uniformity. Everywhere we have to notify abutters, we've changed it to be 200-foot radius instead of 100 for this or 200 for that or 400 for that, because it was pretty confusing. And we've removed some, I know this is minor, but we've removed some costs for developers in terms of places where Cranston was requiring certified mail, but the state didn't, or we were requiring printed copies that we don't use. So our goal tonight is just to walk you through these proposed changes to begin the conversation and give you an opportunity to ask questions. And I imagine some of you, after getting this walkthrough, may want to forward comments or questions to us over the next month. But our goal is to come back in a month with a clean version that reflects all of your input. And so we can help moving this forward. And we'll be back in December with a red line of the zoning ordinances. They're two separate documents, but they relate to each other, and a number of the state statutes make changes to both. And one of the odder things for us to deal with is that the state enabling legislation for subdivision and land development establishes the development review process, but our development review process is in our zoning ordinance. So that's something you'll see here where we're, at least in this draft, we're removing some language from here, but all the edits end up in the zoning ordinance, and that's something Jonas can speak to. So with that, I thought maybe we can highlight a few examples of things highlight a few things before I just invite general questions. I want to look first at the land unsuitable for development definition on page 8. No worries. This is a monster.
And also while Jonas is doing that, so the subdivision regulations, it's up to you guys to approve. However, the zoning regulations, even though they're intertwined with the subdivision regulations, have to go through the different process where it goes to the city council, gets advertised for 3 weeks, comes to here for recommendation, and then back up to the council. So you have total control over the subdivision regulations, but only advisory control over the zoning regulations.
Okay. So I thought this was the land unsuitable for development was one thing that we wanted to highlight just to, and also illustrate sort of what we've been doing. That was land unsuitable for development was defined only under major. I believe it was defined under major development differently than it was in the definition section. So we've moved the entire definition to the definition section. Where floodplain or flood hazard areas is already a defined term in the definition section, so we do not add another definition for it. It's just one of the list of things that are considered land not suitable for development. I think the only substantive change is at one point in our code, under major land development, the text said that land that was over 15%, a slope of over 15% was considered undevelopable and could be subtracted from your developable land, and we did eliminate that. The department didn't feel like that was something that they had done consistently, and certainly 15% slope isn't a hard line, making land undevelopable the way a wetland or an easement is. So stop me at any time if you have questions. Otherwise, I'll just keep rolling forward. If you want to move to the table on page 19.
While he's looking at that, may I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Why is some of this italicized and some of it is just normal? If you look at the wording, some of it is underlined and italicized, and some of it is just normal. Is the underlined italicized changes and additions?
Everything that's underlined is an addition. Is that?
Anything that's underlined and italicized is an addition. There was supposed to be an extra document that goes with this, for the final version, but didn't add that. But yes, if you see anything that's underlined and italicized, that's an addition. If you see it being, and everything in red stricken through, it's
That's-
removal. Anything that has the like teal, like highlight,
Yeah.
that's a discretionary item specifically.
So it doesn't relate to a change. Yeah, so teal comes from staff and
Yeah.
not from any change that the legislature
Yeah.
And the word, and teal is a color, right?
is a color.
Okay.
It is an
It's like
obnoxious
the
blue
it's blue.
color.
It's
Yeah,
blue.
I
don't
just
know why
call
I said
it, I
teal.
just, like, in my world, I'm like, elementary. school
Cyan would
colors,
be the
right?
technical term, I think.
All right, all right.
Here's an example, for the street right of way. You can see there's
It's
the
no longer
red.
up on the screen, Jonas.
It's not up on the screen. Here's an example.
There's our. So that just shows that that's a discretion, that change is recommended by staff. It doesn't correspond to any change in Rhode Island general law.
That change?
You can talk about every single change you want to talk about.
Okay, when that comes back, I'd like to talk about that change.
Specifically, the one we just talked about, the street right of way. Okay.
Just to follow up on that question, would it be possible to send us a key
Yes,
so that, because I had some of the same questions, I didn't understand. I was following the usual track changes, which is just stricken and underlined, and so I didn't understand the import of the colors or what was italicized.
yeah. I
Yeah,
think- and I
that's-
think it was us trying to.
Our
kind
track
of reveal
changes
this required
document.
versus discretionary in the document, but we can definitely send
And
a
I
a
think that
key.
that
We can
would
send a key,
create a
yes.
lot of questions.
Yeah,
if I-
no, because
if I had that.
it's fair for you to be like, okay, you changed this, why? Or, oh. Yeah, I mean, if we didn't change it, it's just plain black and white. The question, Frias's question about italics, did you have any thought about that, Jonas? Were we intentionally putting italics in for all the inserts? Or
All of that was, that was following what we typically do or what the city council does for bills. That's why I followed that. They usually underline, italicize it for city council. That I followed
But if
that.
you found something where we underlined but didn't italicize, it sounds like that was.
If it's
that-
just underlined and not italicized, that's in the text, which mostly is just like,
Okay.
so for example, like you see how street and public, those are not an addition. That's just underlined. That's just how
All right.
the formatting the document. So it has to be underlined and italicized. In future versions, we can make this more clear if this was unclear. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Mhm.
We should have added a key to this in the
Yeah,
beginning.
we will we'll send it out again tomorrow with the key. And if we need to,
In regards to, I only have like a couple of questions, substantive ones.
Mhm.
This one may be reserved for the installation of sidewalks, and then it goes on bike lanes, curbs, bus stop, et cetera. May be reserved, obviously. That's a discretion. We don't have to have bike lanes,
correct.
right?
Yes.
But if
Okay.
they were any kind of public street stuff was supposed to be inside the right of way.
Right. The
So
reason-
even it's a street plus
Okay, all right,
its
because,
accompanying features.
right, I understand. I just want to make sure I'm reading, some of this is to make sure I'm correct, is that I don't want to be put in a situation where I have to have bike lanes
No, it's
on
not
narrow
requiring
roads
you
in the
bike
country
lanes.
section. Okay, all right, so that's what I care about. The other thing is
Sure.
just a curiosity. You cross out street use, and then you use this term, the passage of people and goods. Why do we have to change the word street use?
We don't have to. This is a American Planning Association definition. There's something self-referential of defining the street right of way as for being street use, because you're not defining street, so it's just trying to create a definition that doesn't reuse the word street. And we did, where we were coming up with new definitions, we were either taking them straight from Rhode Island law or from the American Planning Association.
Okay.
Was our preferred source.
Okay, so this phraseology actually is from an authority in the planning field. This isn't just you guys coming up with something.
It is, and it is, and in some ways, this is just words and definitions. It's not gonna, it's a discretionary change with probably no
Yeah, no,
downstream impacts.
okay, thanks.
Okay, onward. This table's really important because it's on the left hand, it talks about all the different kinds of applications we receive, and then how they're dealt with, who deals with them. And so all of the edits in this table are reflected elsewhere in the text, but it's an important summary of what things go to the Plan Commission, which things go to the Technical Review Committee. You will see crossed off over and over and over and over again across this table. Just as a reminder, the Technical Review Committee is the same people who serve on the Development Review Committee. They're City Hall staff, fire, Justin, traffic, building inspector. It's the internal city review. When they sit as the DPR, they can approve projects. Technical review is always it's just advisory, and it's very clear in general law that it's advisory. And we've removed Unified Development Review from this table because that's not a separate body. That's City Plan Commission. You are the body that does that. And down at the bottom, we've changed this pre-application conference from being optional to being recommended. So there's a strong sense in the staff that having those preliminary conversations with developers helps people understand the whole process and go through it more smoothly. So I think that another big change I'd like to go to is the concept review section on page 47. We realized that there are a number of pre-application activities that all had the same, were all used the same name for, but we wanted to distinguish this concept review, which is more formal. I can't obviously read that from here. Oh. The state law defined what a concept review was. And it's more defined than a pre-application conference. So we've put that in here in this definition so that it's really clear what's expected. And those were the few items I did want to just go through and highlight, but if there are any other sections you want to ask questions about or scroll through, or Jonas, if you want to add anything.
Beth, I have a question. Do you, given the annual, biannual changes by the state legislature, do you see that developers are having problems with even understanding what the process is, depending on the changes in every 6 months period, or, I mean, it's been 6 months since the last changes. Does it seem to be being, understood by the development community or not
It's
yet?
a little bit of a process for the development community, for the planning staff, because especially when you're in, it's not great to be in a little situation where you have state laws ahead of your own subdivision regs, which is ahead of your checklists, and it doesn't all align, right? We're very eager to pull everything into full alignment. the intent of the legislature was to try to make it easier to develop things in Rhode Island and make things more uniform. And I think we're honoring that and bringing Cranston's processes in line with what the legislature would like. And that just uniformity in process can help it make it easier for developers to navigate developments in multiple communities. So that's good. And I wouldn't advertise this as any kind of major streamlining, but on the margin, where we could make something a little simpler, we're leaning on that side of the scale, like fewer copies, fewer. Fewer options.
Could we go to page 1? This is my other substantive thing.
Page 1, what's on page
Yep.
1?
I believe it's page 1.
No.
It's at the very the beginning.
The green highlighting is just
All right.
dates that we'll be filling in once something actually passes.
Wha-
Effective,
Intent. Not that. Intent, yes. Why are we getting out, deleting prevent overcrowding of land?
so the intent in state law added this to address present and future needs of the community instead. That, it is certainly not required that we align our intent. I really like address present and future needs of the community.
Yep.
We drop overcrowding of land, and I think there's one more. Is there one more on that section?
No,
Was that it? Yeah, I mean, that's just a very 1940s way to talk about land development, but
I kind of like the 1940s way of talking about land development.
um,
I'm kind of an old school person about. some
yeah,
of
no,
this.
that's
And
definitely the
so-
overcrowding leads, you have sewage, you have disease, you have,
Yeah.
but
I just want, so the reason that we got rid of, this is not a state requirement, prevent overcrowding of land. That's not a state requirement.
it's not a state requirement. It
Right.
is us looking at the state's intent section and
Yeah.
versus ours and just giving it a few tweaks.
That should have been highlighted as a discretionary item.
And again,
Yeah.
It is
Yes.
unbuilt
labeled
area-
in the table as a discretionary item. I just forgot to highlight it. That's all.
Yeah, it is discretionary. I particularly on 5, we're not just regulating unbuilt areas anymore.
No,
That is also undated, the idea that we only develop undeveloped land.
No, I understand why you,
Yeah, so
I
that's,
understand the change to number 5. The preventing of overcrowding of land is the old way of saying we don't want a lot of density in an area. So that's kind of why I don't understand why we're deleting it. So as you know, I have an issue whenever people mess with the density of an existing neighborhood. So I'm not sure I'd want to take that number 2 out. Those are my 2 substantive points. And you addressed the bike lane thing earlier,
Mhm.
and that's my thing on that.
I would also just say that was on my list of questions as well. And we did amend these less than a year ago, I think.
Yeah, Peter, on the big amendment was probably about 18 months ago. The problem what happened this time was that they made it effective upon passage, which was impossible to, so
So
I
I-
believe, we had caught up, and including in the effective upon passage changes were cleanups of the ones that we did a year and a half ago. So they're cleaning up some of the old stuff, passing some of the new stuff, and then both subdivisions and zoning.
And when I went to my reams of paper that I have, and this is why I have them, I pulled up a draft of our last subdivision regulations, which I'll
You mean the
defer to
ones that are
counsel that it might
The
have been
currently enacted ones.
correct.
Yeah.
And we didn't try to amend that about preventing overcrowding. And when I look at that, it does address a present and future need
Okay.
of the community.
So I'm hearing you like the changes in 5, but not 2.
Correct. I would not delete 2.
Do not.
I
Okay.
think that sends a message that we don't want to send, that we're not concerned about density.
Okay. Other comments?
As a whole.
Yeah.
I also, when you talked about making all of the notice distances the same for purposes of uniformity. This is one we also visited, I think, in both the zoning changes that we made about a year ago and the subdivision ones. And they are discretionary, as you say.
Right.
And I would just say, when we look at
We're above the
on
100.
page 82, where you reduced the unified development review public hearing notice radius from 400 feet to 200 feet. As a commission, I would say over the last 5 years or so, when we have been asked to consider reducing radius requirements for notice, we have voted that down. And the reason is that people have a right now to receive notice within certain areas, and for purposes of notifying people. I mean, it makes a difference on larger pieces of property. A 200-foot notice area might be nobody. But if a 200-foot
It might be direct
notice
abutters in an industrial area, yes.
there, or even if you have large, tracts of land, it's much less.
Right, but it's always at least the direct abutters because it's measured from every corner of the property, 200 feet.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would say that it's less important to just be uniform with state law and more important to afford people what I would consider more adequate notice. So I would not support changing the radius, lowering the radius of notice on any of the existing.
Yes, and you're going to be surprised to hear this from me, but I'm actually, this has come up probably 7 or 8 times over the course of me being here. And a lot of times the city council was also against, because it was in the, before unified anything, it was in the zoning regulations, and the city council was against it. However, I will say, from a practitioner standpoint, during unified development, and this happened, when you have 100, you have to give 100-foot radius notification for the subdivision part and 400 for the zoning part. It does become very cumbersome for the practitioner.
We've seen mistakes be made.
So again, ultimately, it's both you and the council's decision whether, because in reality, you're upping the 100 to 200, so you're giving the subdivision people more notice, but you're giving zoning people less notice. I mean, it's a policy decision, but when you have 1 and 4, it creates a problem for an applicant. But again, just from the back end part of it.
Sorry. If our goal is uniformity, my preference is to give uniformly more notice. If I had to phrase that.
Yeah, I mean, you could jack up the subdivision to 4, you can always give more notice.
Right,
You
there's
can't
a-
give less, so, that might be an
The state
option.
requires a certain minimum, but
Yeah, that would be I don't know what the cost is for a developer to do, postage for, of 200 versus 400, obviously it'd probably be double the cost on average. But to me, if I had to choose uniformity, I would uniformly agree with more notice rather than less.
Is this, is this one where we require certified mail?
Currently, this is the one we can require certified mail.
Yeah, because that is a big expense. I mean,
Yeah, for certified mail, it would be an incredible expense. It would be, because it's over $7, I believe. It's about $9 right now.
so we could.
For if you're out in Western Cranston, you know, you might hit 2 or 3 neighbors. It doesn't matter if it'd be 100 feet or 400 feet, if you'd be like way out in Western Cranston.
It's still
But
not gonna cost.
if you
more
were,
than
for
50
example, one
bucks.
of the houses over there, you would be notifying what, like dozens, if not, and
Well,
dozens and dozens
yeah.
of.
You know what? This is an
neighbors.
interesting thought, just to throw out there. We could keep the required radius for. I would be interested if we were gonna move them all to 400 feet, if we might consider doing the discretionary notifications by first-class mail
See,
and not certified, just because that is an expense.
yeah, I mean, I understand why a variance gets more people get noticed for a variance than a regular subdivision. Because if you're asking for a variance, you're asking for a change in the zoning. If it's a subdivision, it's assumed that it's by right. There's no sort of variance requirement. Its use
Yeah.
is allowed, so you give less notice. Like I said, I'm not married to a uniformity thing. My whole thing is I don't want to change the amount of notice people are getting now. If it's 200 feet for subs and 400 feet for variance, if some of them are certified, some of them are not, if I'm gonna make a change, I'm gonna make a change in the direction of more notice. I'm not gonna make a change in the direction of less notice. That's me personally.
Okay.
You know,
Noted.
which ones are certified mail? Are they the subdivisions and the zoning, both are certified mail?
No, it varies. So for anything that's a public hearing requires certified mail, including unified development review. And everything else requires first-class mail. So, for example, for a major
Okay.
major subdivision, preliminary plan, that's a public meeting, that's not a public hearing, that would require, what is it, 100-foot radius right now, and, in first-class mail.
And a minor subdivision would be just regular mail.
Minor subdivision, yeah, so because minor subdivisions, aren't seen, those are entirely administrative now. For a minor subdivision, what we do is we do a discretionary, or a courtesy mailer to the abutters before we actually even start, reviewing the application, and that's also first-class mail. We actually, there's no state law requirement for any abutters notice actually, but, this was a change we did last year for minor subdivisions.
That's right. That's what I was trying to get to, is that
Yeah.
when it's less than 10 units, it's a minor, or less than 9, whatever it is.
Correct.
It's a minor subdivision. You don't have to do certified mail. So that should take care of all the, I call mom and pop people who have little issues. Like they
Yeah,
just want to
so
do a
the
subdivision.
only, we have been seeing a lot of applications under unified development, so even very small subdivisions
Yeah.
that very small subdivisions that have zoning relief would still be 400 feet and certified mailer.
Whenever there's a variance in zoning, like this Meredith Drive thing, it's withdrawn, so I can just talk. That is a zoning variance that would be different than the rest of the neighborhood. And so if I don't want to go to 200 feet for that. I want to go at 400 feet for that. Because that affects that neighborhood. You see what I'm saying?
No, and it's a mix from everything from,
A unified development has a zoning variance component.
although, we have one that we're gonna bring in front of you because we can't find whether a variance was or wasn't ever
Well, yeah,
because of record keeping, so.
yeah.
It's a proposal that isn't going to move or alter any structures, but
Yeah,
we can't approve it without
Right, but my point
putting
is
things
that.
on record, so.
What,
yeah,
my
I agree.
point is that there's a reason why the zoning variance gets more feet
Okay.
than a subdivision. Because of a variance is you're changing the zoning of an area of a community. And therefore, we want to give as much notice as possible, make sure people get notice, that's why it's certified. Because it's gonna change. If it's a subdivision, whether it's minor or major, it's assumed to be by right, I believe. It's an allowed use, and therefore notice is not so necessary. So I don't need to go uniform, but I'm not, like I said, if we have to go uniform, I want to go this way. I'm gonna have more notice.
Okay.
Otherwise, you just keep it the same.
Yeah, I hear you. The question of the certified where it's discretionary, we get complaints from people. Th-
And this is
it is-
complaints from both applicants
And-
and residents who receive them, because very often, 90% of the time, you know, abutters don't actually even see the notification because a certified mailer requires the applicant to be at the door or go to the post office. And I think that's also a big reason why state law has changed to actually now allow first-class mail with a signed notice affidavit.
It seems kind of, I mean, first-class mail is very reliable, and instead of, you actually get the letter instead of getting a card saying, if you want the letter, you have to go to the post office.
Oh, I see. Oh, so the state law doesn't require it to be certified, right?
It does not require that anymore. It is not required to be certified anymore. The only thing it requires, if you do first-class mail, that you also add a notice of affidavit, an affidavit of notice.
I mean, I could be open to changing it from certified to first class. I mean, I'm open. I have to think about it. You know, we're still discussing it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I get first class mail. I open it. I don't have any problems. I used to, so I don't see I think first class mail is probably okay, but I mean,
But you're more concerned about the radius and how many people are getting noticed. Okay, good. Any,
I was gonna say, if it's not certified, then the expense goes way down.
much, yeah,
So
Significant.
it's actually, you could
much
do,
less.
so all of a sudden you could go like, make it your uniform 400 feet, but it's all not certified.
Because it's 50 cents each instead of $9.
Then it's a lot
Yeah.
cheaper, you know, unless the only thing I would say is,
No. Oh, 69, oh,
the only thing I would say is, and this is,
you're right.
I don't know if we can do this in the regs. But I wonder if to really make sure, like, if you only limited certified to like direct abutters. Like the people who are directly adjacent to the piece of property, like a direct abutter, maybe. Those people are the most affected, of course.
So the thing with certified mail is that it doesn't necessarily guarantee that the person sees it, because again,
You have to go to the post
Receive-
office.
you
yeah.
most likely will have to go to the post office unless you're like
All right. all right.
lucky enough that you'll be there, which.
Yeah,
honestly,
actually,
the
I
majority of
find
time it's
certified
not
mail
the case.
annoying myself. You know, so
Um,
I understand what you mean. Okay.
So as a compromise, because the state law requirement is that there's verification that that the applicant sent the notice, not necessarily that the person receives the notice. So as a compromise, we were thinking there's something called a certificate of mailing, which still allows you to send via first-class mail, but it shows an official note, basically, that the applicant actually sent the mail. Is issued by the post office, yes.
Okay. I mean,
So,
I'm like I said, I'm okay with reducing costs to get away from the certified. I just don't want to reduce the radius of notice. I rather,
Understood.
if I'm gonna go uniform, like I said, I'd rather have more, not less.
understood.
This is good. We're getting good feedback on which things apply and which things don't, so that's good. That's what we're here for. Did anyone have any comments on the length of the dead-end street? I know that was probably our single biggest discretionary change.
Could you explain why that's important? I mean, is this like I'm messing with people's cul-de-sacs? Cause I don't want to mess with people's cul-de-sacs. You know what I mean?
So if we, Cranston allows 400 feet is a maximum length of a cul-de-sac, but then allows the city plan commission to authorize more. And I do think, I haven't been around long enough, but Jason's saying that there's a practice of often authorizing more. I don't know any other town that has 400 feet as a limit. Towns tend to have 650, 900, 1,000. There's the reason for a maximum length for a dead-end street is availability of emergency services. But it's a real stretch to say that 400 feet is necessary for public health and safety. However, also, it's certainly true that if you increase it from 400 and pick a number other than 1,600. And you do, on the margin, open up more land for development by allowing longer dead-end streets. Uh-huh. So
What's
that-
the practice right now in Cranston? What's the number right now in Cranston, more or
It's-
less?
and for existing streets and what they are?
Like this,
That's a really good question. I would have to do some research on that too. The average length of our dead-end streets?
yeah, because here's my thing. We're implementing state law changes. I'm totally cool with that. We have to implement state law changes. But where I see discretion, I want to know why we're making these
Mhm.
changes. So when you say, hey, it's 400 feet right now, and then somebody arbitrarily quadruples it, I'm like, okay, why are we quadrupling it? Why are we trying to mess with this person's cul-de-sac?
Well, it's not be messing with future cul-de-sacs. 400 feet is crazy low. Anything above 650, you'd at least have peers, other towns that do it. I don't know, we could do a little more research to pull up.
I
I
would,
mean, Jason was vouching for the fact that.
Yeah, he
we
wanted to go high.
Constantly give out waivers. To
But I
go
don't-
beyond this, so to
I
the point where the 400 is basically meaningless.
okay, I just want to, I don't like, life is all about picking a number sometimes. 21 days, 30 days, 45, I get it. But 1,600 versus 400, I gotta have a reason. Now, if you tell me that, most communities do this and this one does that, or this is the norm in Cranston, but just quadrupling the number when we're not required to under state law. If somebody asked me, why did I go from 400 to 1,600? I'd be like, I don't know. Jason told me.
Yeah.
I'm not like that. You know what I'm saying? So I need to have a basis for why I'm gonna quadruple the number.
Okay,
Or go to a smaller number and explain like, this is, the normal number in Cranston is 800 feet.
Okay, so
You
we'll
know what I'm
come
saying?
back to you itemizing the reasons and a little table of what other communities are doing just for reference in December. That'd be easy enough. And again, you can pick another number. We're just throwing it out there. It could as just an anomaly. Okay, any, there's more. There are 100 pages of evidence.
Well, I know, and I can't, I have to be honest, I didn't go through every single page.
No, and
but
it's
I-
hard, and some of those, like, there'll be a single issue that'll like result in an edit here and here and here, because the same issue comes up in different sections of the code. So that makes
Um,
it,
Page 127. You added a defect clause if notice was defective, and it says required. And my question is, the language that is used, which says no defect in the form of any notice under this section shall render any regulation invalid unless the defect is found to be intentional or misleading. I find that to be unusual language for a notice defect. Usually it's something like if the notice was in substantial compliance with the regulation, with the statute, then it would be deemed valid. Can you just tell me where that language came from?
Yeah, it says in the table, it's it's in 452353, this Rhode Island general laws.
You might have to pull up that law to see whether
Oh,
it's
no.
verbatim
Yeah,
or whether
defect
it's just. Because just because,
Unless I'm looking at the wrong one, that might be looking at the wrong one.
No, I think it is, that does come from state law, but if you could just get back to Kathleen on that, because
Yeah, we can get back to you exactly what
it's-
section, but that is
I-
coming from state law.
And the reason why, if you kind of scroll up a little bit, for instance, if we didn't mail the appropriate, to the correct water department, would that necessarily mean the entire act or whatever, with the entire zoning change is not, is void? So that language, I believe, is right out of state law. And the reason for that is because of that extra notification regarding, like, for instance, we used to have to send stuff to the state planning board. Now they don't have to do that, but again, if they mailed it to the wrong place, that necessarily wouldn't void out whatever, whatever the city was doing. That's the purpose of that, but Jonas or whatever, me or Jonas will get back to you, but I believe that's right out of state law.
I actually have the
Oh,
state law right here.
There it is.
So it says right here. So it's 452353 E.
No, that is not common language, and it is in the subdivision regulations, but and I believe it's there because it's not a jurisdictional requirement in zoning. If you do anything incorrectly, the board doesn't have jurisdiction in it, and it would void it. But that, I believe, is only in the subdivision regs.
Other questions, comments? We'll have another month to be able to look at this and examine it more closely. And next month, we'll get answers to the questions that came up tonight. But if there are other questions, just bring them forward.
yeah, and feel free to email them to us in between so we can come as close to having a clean document for you in December.
Yeah, don't wait until December 3rd. If you have an issue, email them right into the office so that they'll have an answer for you or for us at the next meeting.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Now, before we adjourn, one of our members has an announcement that to share with us. And I invite Justin Matus to take the stand.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As everyone knows, but like this is a formality, this will be my last plan commission meeting. I have actually accepted a engineering job in the private world, so this is my last week here with the city of Cranston. Just wanted to say thank you to everyone for the lessons learned on this commission, everyone's professionalism. I've learned a lot sitting here, and I thank you all for the knowledge that I'm able to leave the city with. So thank you all, and it's been real. It's been fun. It has not been real fun.
Well, we are sorry to see you leave. Your service has been exemplary, and your advice and experience that you bring to the process has been extremely valuable. But we do wish you the best at your new endeavor. It sounds exciting, and maybe you'll be before the commission in a different capacity at some point in the future. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Matus moves adjournment, seconded by Commissioner Mancini. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we are adjourned.